Well, it's good to have a reputation, I guess.
Well, but thank you for the introduction.
You know, are my slides up here? Just, oh, it's okay. You know, you go ahead. So let me start with something else then. I'm going to ask you a question, right? Please, participate. What's a pitch for? I mean, Sonny did a good job at talking about it. Well, let's summarize it. What's a pitch for? Go ahead.
Attract the leases.
To?
Attract the leases.
Attract them how? Do what with them?
To give them value for the property.
And then what?
And then go.
You want their money, right?
Yeah.
You want their money.
Yeah.
How are you going to get their money?
By inviting them.
No, that's not how you get their money. How do you get their money? You get their money, you got to get into the room where they finally sign the check and do their due diligence. Before that, you got to get them excited. There's probably another 50 or 100 people going through their pitch review sessions, and they're going to pick one or two of those to come in and pitch the general partners or whatever, right? And it's the same for the angels. You got to get them excited. The pitch, you know, is to get them excited. Very well. So now there are pitches, and then there's the elevator pitch, and I'm here to talk about the elevator pitch. Okay? So what's an elevator pitch? Come on. Anybody's been in an elevator before? Who's been in an elevator here? Come on. How long is an elevator ride?
42 seconds.
42 seconds. Good number. She's read, what's it called? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? You've got, an elevator trip is between 30 and 60 seconds if you're lucky, right? That's what an elevator pitch means, is you've got 30 to 60 seconds to get them excited. Once they're excited, you can say whatever they want, whatever you want, right? Talk about the market, the competition, you can keep building on that excitement. But if you don't hook them in those first 30 to 60 seconds, you know Sonny said it well, you're dead. They might be polite and listen to you, but in the back of their mind, they're like, they're probably playing with their BlackBerry or iPhones or whatever, it doesn't matter. You've got 30 to 60 seconds to get them excited. So what can you do in 30 or 60 seconds? What do you talk about, right? Everybody has their own style and their own experience. I'm going to share mine, and I'm going to encourage you, the only way you're ever going to learn how to pitch well is do it. You got to go out there, time yourself, 30, 60 seconds, and then stop, cut yourself off, right, until you get it, until you start getting there, you get the groove. You're just giving them the tip of the iceberg. You're not telling them the entire story of your company. You're not telling them the entire story of what you're doing. You don't need to go into your value add. You just got to get them excited. Know your audience, get them excited. So for example, you know, for my company, when I first started pitching, I had a 4 or 5 minute pitch. And I noticed when I was towards the second minute, people just didn't get what I was doing. I knew something was wrong. And then I started, you know, taking away stuff that was redundant, taking away stuff that doesn't matter. And in the end of it, I followed this certain technique. Now this is my technique, right? Always start with a question. I think Sonny did that well, right? Start with a question, right? So I'm going to give you a question. Who's played a video game before here? Come on, that's it? More people, there you go. What game have you played? What game, what's the last game you played? What's the best game you played?
Halo.
Halo, great. Halo, you know how much it cost to create Halo 1? It cost around $20 million. You know why it took $20 million to create? Because 50% of that cost was towards marketing, the other 45% was towards creating 3D content. You know why it's expensive to create 3D content? Because it's a manual process. And what we're doing at Verold today is we're automating the creation of 3D content to cut down the time and cost to market. End of story, that's my pitch, right? I told him what the problem pain was, I told him what we're doing at a very high level, and I stopped it there, right? I sunk in my hook, and I start reeling it in bit by bit. You know, have you fished before? No, just reel in your hook. And then get them to ask you a question, depends on the situation. If you're in a formal pitch, you've got them excited, then you can continue. If you're in an elevator ride, hand out, whip out your business card, tell them, you know, I think you'd love to hear more of what our company, just give them your business card, you know, and move on. Get them excited and move to the next stage. That's what the elevator pitch is about, in my opinion, right? And it's worked wonders for me. This is my third company. I've used the elevator pitch successfully to raise funding in my first 2 companies, and right now for my third company, right? And it all started, I'm not saying this is the end all be all, but it all started with meeting a person, giving them our pitch, and then telling them, would you like to hear more? Right? And more often than not, they tell me, yeah, you know, this sounds pretty cool. I'd like to get to know you better. Or, you know, this is not my industry, but I got a friend or another VC who'd be very interested in hearing your pitch, right? And it falls from there. The elevator pitch is to get them excited, right? Now, you know, I've tried, when Lally asked me to come speak here, I tried to think, you know, what are the 3 things in an elevator that must be in an elevator pitch? And in my opinion, here they are, right? Short, sweet, and simple. You know, these people that you're pitching to may not know your industry. They may or may not know it. Why take the chance of them knowing it? You know, if you tell them the pitch and then they know the industry great, you can have a beautiful conversation after that. If they don't know your industry, at least they get to know what you're doing. Short, sweet, and simple, right? Always try to limit yourself to 30, 60 seconds before you go into the rest of the stuff, right? Get them excited, get them want to know you more, get them, when you talk about your market, when you talk about your competitors, when you talk about your team, you want them interested, you want their heart to be racing fast. This guy's a winner, right? That's the mindset you want to put them in. The second thing, in my opinion, and this is something that I see a lot of entrepreneurs do this mistake, is they lack the passion and the excitement of their pitch, right? I mean, here's a sample pitch, right? You know, we're building a company that a lot of them can create in 3D Compton, and there's 400,000 users in the US, and about those 400,000 we expect to get 10,000 state customers in the next year. Versus using your voice, right? Projecting it, using your hands. You know, there's 400,000 animators in the US alone. And I think in the first 2 years, we can get 10,000 of those as paid customers. Here's how I want to do it, right? Why forget the power of your voice? Why forget the power of your hands? Why forget the power of eye contact? Why forget the power of pacing back and forth? Use those to your advantage. Use body language to your advantage. A lot of entrepreneurs focus only on the words. They forget that they have this entire suite called the body that can be used so effectively as a tool to get people engaged, to get them excited, to listen more about your pitch. So be passionate. If you're not passionate, why should they be passionate about opening up their wallets and giving you money, right? Why should they care if you don't show you're caring? Why should they get excited if you're not excited? And you know, passion and excitement, they're contagious. You know, if you walk in with a lot of energy and get people excited, more often than not, they will be excited just because you're excited, right? So use your body language, you know, use it effectively. Project your voice, use your pitch. Speed up if you see they're falling asleep. Slow down if you see they're not catching up with you. Project your voice, right? Talk from your stomach. Practice all these in front of the mirror. Practice these with your friends. Practice them with your family. Practice until you get it right. And keep practicing and doing it wrong until, you know, suddenly you've got it. I didn't get here by just, you know, being naturally born with it. I'm a shy, introvert person. You know, I forced myself. No, really, I am, okay? But I forced myself. I really did. I said, if I'm going to build a company, you know, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to pitch these things. And I kept practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing. I kept failing. People kept falling asleep listening to me. Until, you know, I suddenly, you know, became more aware of what I'm doing and what my mistakes were and not. And finally, the last thing about your pitch is know your audience. Know who you're pitching to. Are you pitching to a potential partner? It's a different type of pitch you want to give them than if you're pitching to an angel, and it's different than if you're pitching to a VC. Try to figure out what excites them, what would get them excited about listening more to you. Try to find out, do your homework about these people before you meet them, or at least do it mentally in your head if you bump into them, and give them what you think would excite them, right? And I think if you, in my opinion, if you stick to these 3 guidelines and you practice your pitch a lot, and you learn from doing it with other people, I think you're onto something good. And then, once you get them excited, you can follow through. And those are my tips for how to become a good pitch. Yes?
About the practice, one thing that I do, and I find effective, is if you videotape yourself giving your pitch, and do it as often as you need until you feel comfortable with it, and perhaps ask somebody else to look at it.
I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely. You know, in a video you can pause, go back, you can dissect your performance. Absolutely agree with you. That's a great advice.
For those of you who don't adore mics like I do,
I think that's a hint for me. Okay.
no, I'm being honest. There's no shame in admitting that you need coaching and help with pitching.
Absolutely.
And so friends of mine who are like, I went to school and hung around the engineers. The engineers were brilliant, but they hated to talk. The artsies really loved to talk. They weren't necessarily as hardworking, but they were better at doing the pitch. What we did is we used to coach the engineers as to how to do a good pitch. So there's nothing wrong with going to, let's say, a Toastmasters or to somebody who is good at giving pitches and saying, look, I know you don't really know much about my product, but can I practice with you? We're not all good at everything. You might be the most brilliant software developer, but you may not have that natural ability to speak in front of a crowd, so work on it. And there's no shame in admitting you need some coaching on it.
Hi, Jan. Do you have any suggestions on how to transition? Let's say you're with somebody in the elevator, and do you have any suggestions on how to transition the conversation, just making it from a general conversation to something that you might want to offer to them in terms of product or service?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first thing that pops up in my mind is start with a question, right? Really, questions have been my best friend, right? I mean, have you ever played a game before? Is usually the first thing I ask anybody when I want to tell them about what I do, right? And more often than not, they say yes. They say no. Well, do you have any kids? Well, yes. Do they play games, right? Ask a question, and just follow through with that and flow through with that. Questions are usually easier than just statements. I got this cool product, right? Again, know your audience. Try to figure out what is something that might interest them, and ask them a question there and see how the conversation opens up. That's my advice.
So to a complete stranger, you just ask them a question.
Dude, man, I've raised about $500,000 from complete strangers, right? So there's no shame in trying, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Sure.
In a 4-minute elevator pitch, outside of the context
That's
of
not an elevator pitch in my book anymore. But
Really?
sorry, go ahead.
My only question was PowerPoint. Does it
Yes,
add to 4-minute time
No.
frame, or does it take away?
I think it takes away 100%. The way I usually structure, if I have a PowerPoint, I keep it on the first slide, right? I keep it on the first slide, and then I give my 30-second elevator pitch before I touch anything else, right? Get them excited, and then when you hammer them with the slides, they're still following with you because they want to know more about what you're going to talk about, right? That's my advice, is don't touch PowerPoint.
Just to add that quickly and I might have used this a little bit, is think of it as a backdrop to you, like not as a PowerPoint. Like see it as scenery behind you on stage and how you're going to dramatize that. I mean, that's talking a bit theaterish, but again, don't see it as like a PowerPoint.
Right, but you're right. You said the right word. Theater. It's all about drama and theater. You're an actor on the stage.
Yeah.
Play the part.
Yeah.
And they're your audience. If they're not entertained, if they're not excited, why should they open up their wallets? Right.
In the healthcare area, it's always a good idea to create some kind of emotional feel for what you're doing, because medicine is emotional. People are being cured of diseases, they're having procedures done. So if you can position something to say, imagine you have this disease, imagine you have this problem, make people think, gee, that's an important issue.
That's a good point. Okay. Oh, thank you.